Talking to Death is released every Friday and brought to you absolutely free. But if you want ad-free listening and exclusive bonuses, subscribe to Tenderfoot Plus at tenderfootplus.com or on Apple Podcasts.
Talking to Death is a production of TenderfootTV and iHeart Podcasts. Listener discretion is advised.
Welcome back. I am not Payne Lindsey, but Dylan Harrington, producer of the show. Payne and Mike are actually both traveling today, capturing some new interviews with some really exciting guests. More on that later. So yeah, let's just jump right into the episode. Today's guest is George Chidi. He's a journalist and political commentator here in Atlanta. He also writes for a lot of other publications nationally. We were introduced to George through our podcast partner, iHeart Podcasts. He has a show with iHeart called King Slime, the prosecution of Young Thug and YSL. For the last year or so, he's been covering the Young Thug YSL trial. If you've been living under a rock and have no idea who Young Thug is, he's a hip-hop artist, rapper. About a year ago, Young Thug was arrested in Atlanta for a slew of crimes, including racketeering, which he's facing a RICO charge for, drug possession, weapons charges, attempted murder, and street gang activity. The trial involves 27 members of the YSL gang. He does a great job breaking down everything that's going on with the Young Thug trial. If you're into hip-hop, if you're into criminal trial breakdowns, he's your guy. Here's an interesting tidbit for you. Before Payne and I worked in podcast, we actually both worked in music videos here in Atlanta, and both of us independently made music videos for Young Thug. So we both have sort of a personal connection to him and to this story and to seeing how this trial unfolds. So even if you haven't heard of it or you're very into it and following it every day, this conversation with George is going to be really fascinating. He knows everything about it. He's able to break it down and make it all make sense. George also talks about a lot of other things on top of the case, things that are related like crime, gang violence, and homelessness and poverty issues. And he's really an authority figure on all of these things. So even if those things interest you, this conversation is worth listening to. But anyway, yeah, that's enough from me. Why don't we just jump right into the interview? Today's guest is George Chidi.
Fourscore and 7 years ago, our forefathers brought forth upon the...
You have a good podcast voice.
Yeah, I could. Yeah, I was radio-ish for a little while, and now I feel better.
Okay, what do you mean?
In college.
Okay.
Did like campus radio.
Okay.
The irony is that my partner did really, really well. I was at UMass doing campus radio with Audie Cornish, formerly of NPR, like All Things Considered, for like wild. 10, 12. She went off to go do NPR, and I went off to go write about tech, and she knew how to do it. So.
Damn. Did you like the way it felt doing the radio stuff back then? Or?
It was interesting. It's much more like podcasting in that, like, you kind of have to make it up as you go.
Yeah.
You're like, you have tremendous freedom. Mm-hmm. Like, what am I going to do? What am I going to talk about? What are we reporting on right now? All right, let's go figure that out.
Yeah.
Like, how do we get in front of an audience? Okay, let's go figure that out.
Yeah.
Like, what does our recruiting look like? Like, how are we staffing this thing? Like, what's our equipment? Like, just go figure everything out.
Yeah.
Like, we're pretty much starting from scratch, which is like every damn podcaster in the world right now.
Yeah, exactly. That's a through line with almost all podcasts, right? Like, we're just figuring shit out.
And that part, I like.
Which parts do you not like?
Not getting paid.
Right. The lack of a huge paycheck.
Yeah, lack of a huge paycheck. That's what got me out of the radio stuff. Was like, I don't see myself making real money at this. I'm going to go find a magazine. And that didn't work. I did for a little while, and then I got dumb. So
you went to UMass. What did you study?
I studied journalism.
Did you always want to do that?
No, I started off as a microbiology major. So, no, my life is a fucking train wreck too. So I'm not. Are we a sweary podcast?
You can swear as much as you like. Yeah.
Well, thank goodness.
Yeah.
Because I'm from Massachusetts.
Yeah.
And so the Dennis fucking Leary thing's gonna come out.
There you go. Fuck it.
This, by the way, is not an affectation. Like I sound like Albert Brooks because that's how I grew up. Like this is just who I am.
You're not putting it on.
No. Like I can't code switch. If I could, my life would be different. Like I was the one black kid in school. Like
okay,
you know that. Like I don't know where you went
from. I grew up in Kennesaw, Georgia, suburbs, and there was like 2 black kids in my class.
Yeah, I'm that kid.
Yeah, okay.
went to UMass thinking I was going to go be a doctor, like failed out after a year.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean, I'd imagine it's hard.
Well, yeah, it was more than that. I was just like depressed and chasing girls. And
Okay.
it was
Well,
just bad.
those are conflicting things when you try to be a doctor, right?
Yeah. So I joined the Army, and I was a soldier for years. Spent 2 years in the reserves and 5 on active duty, and got out and went back to school.
Wow.
And I was an Army journalist.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. What was that like then?
A good place to learn how to be a journalist because it's really hard to fire you.
Really?
Yeah.
Why is that?
Because one, it's expensive to train the next guy.
Okay.
Like you actually have to go and train.
You'd be a
somebody
soldier, but you're a journalist.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you've got to send like basic training and then journalism school in the Army and, whatever. And it was a good place to sort of experiment, to find your voice. And I'm making that sound much more romantic than it was. I spent most of my time in the Army. I spent a year studying Arabic at the Defense Language Institute, and then 4 in the 25th Infantry Division in Hawaii, writing about infantry operations in the jungle. And with the exception of a short peacekeeping stint in Egypt, nobody shot at me. It was 94 through 99. It was a long time ago.
Okay.
But I got out, and I'm like, all right, I guess I'm a journalist.
So what does an Army journalist cover? Forgive me, but like so you work for the Army.
Yeah.
And so are you?
Well, it depends on what you're exactly asked to do. Like, because sometimes you're a glorified PR guy.
Right.
Sometimes you're writing for Stars and Stripes, which is straight journalism. And hey, people are getting shot. Go write about it.
Okay.
Like, take pictures on the battlefield. Like, transmit correspondence back. Like,
are they ever like, hey, we don't want that shit out there?
all the time.
Right.
In fact, that was kind of my gig. Like, I get thrown out of a lot of places. Like, that's been the story of my life. There was a story I was writing just before I got out. So, fun fact, it's free. Breast implant surgery in the Army is free.
What do you mean? Like free?
I mean, if you're a soldier and you want breast implant surgery, like, there are plastic surgeons who will do that for free.
Where did the free breast implants come from?
So you have to buy the actual implants, but because they wanted their plastic surgeons to keep their skills up.
Oh, wow.
Because it's war. People get parts blown off of them. So your surgeons need to be doing surgeries.
Wow.
And so here's a surgery that's elective, but go for it. Like, let's practice.
But you're still cutting in. That's
Yeah.
real surgery.
So the scandal here was that the senior officers at base were putting their wives on that list and bumping junior enlisted soldiers down the list so that their wives would get the surgery. And I was writing about that.
That's a cool story.
That's a great story.
I did not see that
It's
one
a
coming.
great story.
That's a great story.
And I got thrown out of Triple Army Medical Center, and the commanding general sent a letter to my commanding general saying, don't let this guy back on my base unless he's shot.
Wow.
Like, because I'm messing with their doctors. And
Yeah.
Journalism is about writing about something that somebody else does not want anybody to know. Everything else is public relations. And that is the attitude that a good journalist is looking at no matter where they are, or they're not a damn journalist.
Well, what is a journalist in 2024?
Well, that's just it. I think part of it is being an actual human being who's got 2 eyes, who can put them on something and say, this is real. No, that's bullshit. Somebody made that up. No, that's AI. That's just all.
You mean being able to
bullshit.
discern those things?
Yeah. I think
Being able to call, being a journalist involves being able to have your own sort of bullshit meter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And a lot of that has to do with establishing a professional and personal reputation for probity. Anybody could say they're a journalist, but if you don't have a bunch of time and the organizational or whatever to say, yeah, I'm a journalist and here is my body of work that you could check against other stuff to go, okay, well, that was right, that was right, that was right, that was right. Okay, so you're not full of shit.
Right. You've got it right enough times to have built a rapport that.
Yeah, more than a report, a record. A record, because
yes.
somebody else could come along and say, and this happens all the time, some scammy bullshit website that's existed for 6 months that was put together by a public relations firm or somebody's political campaign that exists to fuck with someone.
Yeah. Yes.
And like a real journalist will see that and go, that's not real.
Right. You're not taking the bait there.
Yeah.
You can see
and then they will
that.
say, this is not real. This is why I say it's not real. And here's how you know that what I am saying is much more likely to be true than not. That is what I think journalism is right now.
Mm-hmm.
Like validate what is real from what is not, because we are living in a world of bullshit.
Yeah. So how do you, I mean, I feel like now that's probably harder than ever to do, though.
Yeah, it is definitely harder than ever to do. It's why I don't fear for my job. Like, it is harder to do right now than it ever has been. AI is gonna be a problem.
Right. In your eyes, what is that problem? It's going to be?
Well, like once upon a time, if I had video evidence of something, I'm like, all right, that's too expensive to fake.
Right.
It could be faked. Maybe I'll find other sources. Like, and then I find another source, and it's a photograph from a different angle by a different person whose background I can check out and go like, all right, well, these two things they don't know each other and they've both got the same thing. I'm probably looking at, and then fucking OpenAI comes along and they can just do, and on the fly and for basically nothing, gin up an image. Like, at which point I need to go and find human sources and start making was this real? Were you there? Like, what else did you see? Is there other evidence that you can show me?
What do you think is going to have to happen when, I mean, the video technology with AI is kind of already here, basically.
More or less.
And it'll be even more and more accessible to everyone eventually. Just tap on your phone. How do we, like, verify what is real?
So, again, I think part of this is some of it's going to be technical. Some of it's going to be just straight up like, I have a device that can find AI in an image.
Right. AI should be able to find AI, right?
Maybe, yeah, but then you've got to make sure that the AI that you're using to find the AI itself can be trusted. And so there's a whole chain of things that I think have to happen. But part of it is just the legwork. It's just some schlubby dipshit who shows up and knocks on a door or makes a phone call, or until phone calls can get faked. I mean, like,
which we're there now too, right?
Which is a real threat. Like, honestly, like the Georgia legislature just passed a law that outlaws the use of AI to impersonate somebody else in medium.
Really?
So, yeah, like, we're going to we live in Georgia, and we're in a swing state.
Yeah.
And they're going to dump $500 million in ads on us in the next 6 months.
God.
And those ads are going to be fucking stupid.
It's going to suck.
It's the worst. It's got, like, we've gone through 2 cycles of fucking
It's
stupid.
exhausting.
This is going to be stupid on steroids, in part because of the AI shit. Because it's going to be super easy to make an ad that shows basically anything you want. You don't have to spend $1 million on it. And, if this law hadn't passed, it would have been like, I mean, whatever you think is the worst possible
Dream
thing.
it up. It's going to happen.
And we're still going to get like robocalls with somebody's voice faked they're going to say vile, stupid shit.
Yeah.
Like, the problem is we don't have the mechanisms to chase down people who are going to break this law.
Yeah,
like,
we don't. I mean, like, I thought spam calls were illegal. I get them all the time.
All the time. I got 2 while I was coming here.
Yeah, like, what the hell? Come on. It's insane.
So this is my life as a journalist. It's bullshit detection.
Yeah.
Like, and honestly, I don't think I'm ever going to be out of a job. Like, because there's too much bullshit.
Do you think your job has gotten more important throughout your career? In that way, or personally?
I would have said no until about 3 years ago.
Really?
Yeah, 3 or 4 years ago. Like, because anybody really can be a journalist. Like, when you are doing the work, you are a journalist. Like, you get better over time when you build up a body of work.
Yes.
But the internet and social media, to some degree, was a democratizing function, or at least it started out that way. Like, I was looking forward to a moment like that. I don't think it's ever going to come now, where there would be enough people with enough eyes, and some of them are going to be full of shit and some won't, but you'd have enough material where you could sift through it and get at the truth.
Right.
And now I'm not so sure.
Like, in theory, that makes sense, where the access to the information should be there enough where people could just use their thinking caps and figure it out. But it's muddied a little bit, isn't it?
Some of this was getting a lot easier. It's still getting, some of things are much, much easier. Like, I don't have to go to the courthouse all the time in order to pull a record.
Thank God.
I can sit in my house and watch a Zoom meeting of a public conversation, like a public meeting. I can make phone calls. I can find a phone number that I could call.
Yeah.
Like, because and not thumbing through, I'm showing my age here, but really, like, I'm really really basic things that we take for granted, like Googling somebody's name and finding a phone number and calling it. Mm-hmm. Like, things were getting easier.
Why do you like doing this stuff?
I'm naturally curious. And honestly, I think it's just this big philosophical question about like the arc of the universe and history. I think about how fleeting my life is. Like, I've got like 70 or 80 years, maybe more if, healthcare gets better. Mm-hmm. How old are you?
I'm 36.
There's a chance you'll live forever.
You think so? Or am I like right past the cusp there?
Well, that's it.
Right?
Like, we can see the line. I think we're not there. I don't know. Maybe you.
or I've just passed it.
Maybe me. I don't know, but
yeah.
I think we're close. But
do we want to live forever?
Well, I don't know. Like, that's one of those things I'm kind of looking around for.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's this idea that there's all of this amazing stuff to look at. And my time is limited. And I am in a job where I get to look at everything. I've got an excuse to call anybody. I can, if I am curious, I can find an answer if there is an answer to be found. And I do that all day. And as long as I stay curious, I stay employed.
Yeah. So it's just, it's innate to you to want to understand?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so. I think journalism should solve problems.
You think so?
I do.
Give me an example of that. What do you mean by that?
Like, all right, so I spent some time, like, at the Atlanta Journal-Constitution writing about crime. Mm-hmm. In fact, to some degree, that's why I'm here.
Yeah.
And every time I would show up where somebody got shot and killed, and I'd be the guy who had to knock on the damn door of the mother, daughter, husband, knock, knock. Hi, I'm George Chidi. I'm from the AJC. I understand that your wife just got killed by an axe murderer. And I would never ask this, but like, so tell me how you feel.
Sure.
Like, it is the shittiest possible moment in a person's life.
How do you handle that kind of situation? I mean, are you just...
The absolute empathy.
Sure.
A sort of an apologetic, like
this sucks. You're acknowledging that this is intrusive, but...
And not pushing it.
Yeah.
Like, not, if they're no, I'm no. I don't ever want to be... There's a degree to which I can't enter somebody's life like that. Mm-hmm. And the problem was, when I was at the AJC, I was entering a lot of people's lives like that. And every time I did, I'm like, what the fuck am I doing here? I am about to write another story where there's another black kid's face, like in like a mugshot or like this guy is dead now picture. And am I actually solving any of the problems here? Am I reducing the crime rate? Am I bringing solace to sometimes yes, mostly no. And I'm like, what? This is bullshit. Yeah. Like, I need to be fucking right. If I'm going to do anything around this stuff, I need to be solving the fucking problems I'm writing about. Or else the people that I am writing about will look at me like the enemy.
Right. You're just talking about it.
And they do. Like, you go into like poor neighborhoods in Atlanta and you ask them what they think about the fucking media. They're like, oh, the guys that show up when somebody got shot.
Right.
Like, that's it. And that's
not a good look.
No, it's predatory. Mm-hmm. I profit from your pain.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's easy to break it down that way. And so you felt that. And
I quit. I straight up quit. I quit. I thought I was done.
Yeah.
I quit the AJ, best job I ever had until this one. And I quit the AJC in 2008 to go get an MBA. 2008.
Yeah.
To get an MBA.
Well.
Like, master of timing.
Yeah.
But I was out. I was out for a while and did some other marketing crap and whatever, and it just didn't feel the same. And I also wasn't good at it.
Why not?
I don't know. Like, you know, I don't have that mercenary. I have an MBA, and I've got hustle all day long, but I'm not. I can't make myself go like, I am doing this specifically because it will make me a lot of money. Like,
because that's how you have to think, really. You have to really be just married to it that way.
And I'm not wired that way. I can manage, but I'm not a business guy. So I worked on homelessness in Atlanta for a while and worked for the downtown business district on like sort of social problems, homelessness, mental illness, did that for a few years. Made really good political contacts, I might add. And I served on my Pine Lake City Council when I wasn't doing that. Population 780, not counting geese. And it was a political education. So when I left a job or the job left me in 2020, I went back to writing because I knew I could make money. And one thing leads to another, and I built a big audience. It's more than just one thing leads to another. It was diligent, ground level, neighborhood level, individual reporting.
Yeah.
That's why I ended up covering the Young Thug trial. So I was like at protests. I was in the street in 2020. I'm watching everything go. I was there when the Wendy's burned down.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Watched the guys run out. Got my ass kicked over there too, I might add.
Did you?
Yeah.
What happened?
So this is the downside to like, gotta go look and put my 2 eyes on it.
Yeah. Well.
So I'm at home and it's like a Saturday night and somebody on Twitter hits me and says, there are guys with guns over at the Wendy's and they're not letting anybody white drive by. And I'm like,
prove it.
Yeah, that's bullshit. I don't believe you.
Mm-hmm.
That sounds like some white supremacist bullshit that's online.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go look. And I'm black, so surely my Albert Brooks sounding ass will be just fine. So I go over there and there are a bunch of guys with, AR-15s and handguns and all the rest. And yes, indeed, they were not letting white people go by because there are a bunch of like white supremacist Proud Boy assholes that had been buzzing it. And so they posted up. Turns out they were a street gang and didn't like the fact that I was a news reporter and had a cell phone with a camera on it and told me to give them my cell phone. And I did not because fuck them. I don't give my cell phone to anybody. Then they said they were going to shoot me. And I'm like, I don't believe you.
Wow. That's bold.
It was.
And you're
stupid.
and you're like, I hope
so
not,
stupid.
No, yeah.
So stupid.
I could see myself.
Hear me. Don't fucking do that.
Yeah.
Don't fucking do that.
Yeah. But you said that.
But I did.
And you didn't get shot, though.
Dude starts counting down from 10 to, like saying, I'm going to shoot you when I get to 0. And at 5.
He was counting it down.
Had his hand on his pistol, ready to pull. And I'm like, at 5, I'm like, you know what? I think I'll leave. Good luck. Yeah. I walk away and the guy runs around in front and pops me in the face. And I'm like, I used to box. I don't know what the fuck is wrong with me because like I didn't do anything. I mean, he was small, I'm big, and nothing happens in him. But like this little chyron at the bottom of the screen starts going, George, you are under attack. Somebody else hits me. George, put your hands up. And so I turned around and got my hands up. I'm backing up and I'm like surrounded by like 50 guys with guns. Like, fuck him up, dude. And I'm like, fuck.
So what do you do now?
Well, I backed up into the light into like there's a gas station nearby and I got into the light, knew I was on camera, knew I was fine at that point.
Okay.
And got into my car and drove away. Went to Grady. Yeah, that's the downside of
on the ground.
Putting your eyes on it.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. So, like, I'm writing about all of this stuff, but as it's happening, I don't know if you remember in 2020, but the crime rate, the violent crime rate started to skyrocket. It was fastest of any major city in the United States. Homicide rate went up 60% in a year. It's never
Why
goes up
was that, you think?
Well, that is what I wanted to figure out.
Yeah.
I am curious. This should not be happening. I don't understand any of this. But I've written about crime before, so I'm going to write about it from this perspective. Why is this shit happening? And I'm going to explain this to a bunch of scared ass politicians who are going to want to turn this into a police state. Like, this is why homicides have been rising. This is why they rose this fast here. These are the factors. These are the specific cases. This is what's going on. Fani Willis got elected, and in her first couple of months, she said, it's gangs. Like, there are like 80% of the violent crime in Atlanta is gangs. And I'm like, I don't believe you.
Right.
I don't. It's exactly the sort of bullshit that a politician would say.
Right.
Because you can blame it on gangs.
Answer for something, right?
Yeah. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to go look. And I start pulling indictments and, homicide cases, whatever I can get my hands on.
Yeah.
And it becomes really evident really fast that a street gang called YSL was going to get fucking rolled up. Because YSL keeps showing up in all of these other places, including a big indictment of the YFN street gang that came down in 2022. And then I start looking at what they're doing and like what Young Thug is doing. And I'm like, oh, well, that's suspicious. That's weird. And, oh, this thing. And, oh, well, look at that. Somebody got killed. That's close to him. And what is this? So I started writing like, oh yeah, by the way, like YSL's going to get fucking rolled up and Young Thug's probably going to get arrested. And there's this whole like, what are you talking about? Like, how are you? And then Young Thug got arrested and YSL got rolled up.
And you weren't surprised.
And I wasn't surprised, but all of a sudden everybody's looking at me like, you the police. And I'm like, no.
No. I was just looking at information here.
This shit would have been obvious to anybody who was looking through those documents. It's just somebody had to go do it. And so that's kind of my shtick. Like, I spent a lot of time looking at court records and talking to people, or have, like, looking at this idea, like, why was violent crime right? Because it has cratered since.
So what was it?
So,
was it gangs?
Some of it. Not 80%.
Okay.
I think 40 is probably a big number, like a lot.
Yeah.
But it's
but not 80.
It's not 80. It was never 80. What it is one, everybody lost their fucking mind. And I know that's sort of really basic, but I mean, the diagnosed rate of anxiety and depression rose by 25%.
Okay. Well, that's a factor for sure, right?
That's a factor. We live in a state that has open carry, like no concealed carry, no permit, all of that. We also live in a state that kept the clubs open when a bunch of other states around us closed them. And so what ended up happening is folks from New York and Chicago and Philly were coming down for fun time in Atlanta. Like literally, like there'd be like an Atlanta night in Philly and like flights, and they'd come in and they'd go party here. Only like a turf war started to develop downtown around like illicit drug sales and women. Sex trafficking. And those, so normally downtown Atlanta is one of the safer zones in the city.
Yeah.
Like its homicide rate increased like 400%. Like people were getting shot as they were coming out of clubs.
Wow.
Like that was a big part.
There's some clashing going on of outsiders, maybe.
Some of it was like there was this thing where Chicago street gang members were coming into Atlanta, but it wasn't gang beef per se. They were people who belonged to a gang who were having a beef, but it's not the same thing.
From a different place.
Yeah. This was just interpersonal bullshit by people who are carrying. Easy to get a gun, really hard to get mental health treatment, like big mental health problem going on. A lot of stressors related to the pandemic itself. People were losing their housing left and right because they were losing their jobs. And when people are desperate things happen.
Yeah.
Like a lot of those homicides were domestic violence shootings. Some of them were over the stupidest shit in the world.
Right.
Like this guy who shot a Subway sandwich maker because he had like
not the Subway. I mean,
too much mayonnaise on the sandwich.
Just like lost their mind because they just have had it with the world.
The other thing is that the jails became so crowded that it became hard to actually hold on to people. and they're still overcrowded. And the jail is a murder factory right now.
You mean like being murdered in jail?
So there were murders in jail. They were spitting out murderers, and people were getting killed in jail one way or another. They were dying. Like the death rate in the jails increased 5-fold during the pandemic.
Yeah.
Prisons, same thing. So, I mean, a lot of factors. Like, it's not just one thing.
Yes.
It's a bunch.
And it usually
of different
never
things.
is one thing in anything, right?
Right. Part of it was the cops. Like the relationship between the police and the public broke down in 2020. And it's only just now starting to build back up.
Yeah. Like
street protests are going on. The cops are pissy about it. Then there's the Rayshard Brooks murder, shooting, killing. Rayshard Brooks was killed by 2 cops at the Wendy's. And when those cops were fired and charged, like the other cops essentially went on strike. There's a blue flu, a straight up, we're not responding to calls unless there's an act of violence happening right now. We're not going to go police.
Wow.
Like, and people saw that shit and were like, well,
that creates issues, right?
Yeah. So I'm like, this is the context for me looking at the YSL stuff. I'm like, all right, Fonnie Willis is ready to lay all of this shit on you. What does that look like? And so I dove in. And here we are 2 years later.
What are the odds that young thug doesn't go to prison?
Doesn't go to prison? 1 in 4.
1 in 4, you think? Okay.
Yeah. And I'll tell you why. It's because those are the odds I think there's a mistrial.
But don't they just go right back?
Yeah. If this fucking mistrials, you can't tell me they're going to try to charge him again. If it mistrials, I mean, at the very least, he'll have bail because there's no fucking way they can keep him in.
Right, yeah.
I think there's a 1 in 4 chance of a mistrial. I think if there is no mistrial, like they caught him at his house with a switch and, enough promethazine syrup to staff a CVS. Like he goes to jail for that, I think.
Okay.
The rest of it is a crapshoot. I don't know. They have to prove that he rented a car intending for the person to use it in a drive-by. And on some really basic level, I have been asking myself this question this whole time is, why would you be stupid enough to rent a car that you knew would be used in a drive-by? You steal a fucking car if you're going to do a drive-by so that it doesn't trace back to you. Now, granted, like the folks who are doing this weren't smart. We prosecute the gangsters we can catch. Right. So at the drive-by where like one of the rivals of YSL, Donovan Thomas, was killed in 2015. Car drives by, barbershop comes out, very Godfather-like, kills the guy, drives off. One of them had his cell phone in his pocket. Another of them, Lil Duke, was in jail, like in Rice Street, like on unrelated stuff. He had just been picked up a week or so before. Called the dude in the car on the cell phone from a jail phone. That was recorded.
Wow. Yeah.
Cell phone, pull the records, look at the towers that it was pinging off, and oh shit, that cell phone was at the scene at the time of the murder. Like, that's fucking it. Like, that's the end of that guy. Like,
that's pretty cut and dry, I think.
Yeah. And then it's just a matter of, can the prosecution tie that to the other people in the car and to the other people in the case? Like, that's it. Like, so I'm sure they've got somebody dead to fucking rights.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, the question is, how many other people do they actually loop in?
How much longer do you think it's going to take for there to be a verdict here?
Unless so the judge looks like he's trying to speed things up. I don't think he's doing a good job.
Since when? Yeah.
I think it goes another year.
Damn.
They have 150 witnesses to go. And that's after knocking a bunch of them off. They have 150 witnesses to go. God. They're averaging 2 a week, 3 maybe. That's a year. They haven't even gotten to the good ones.
What if they just spent all that time and money in trying to do something else with it? Like, if they cared so much about this issue.
Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking about what $3 million would have done to Cleveland Avenue if you put it in the right places. Cleveland Avenue needs a lot of help. Cleveland Avenue is the part of Atlanta that isn't gentrifying yet.
It's not. It's in a funk.
It's in a funk. And so folks that are living there because they can't find anywhere else, it was tremendously violent during the pandemic. It's calmed down now because everybody's calmed down. Terrible relationship with the police, big social problems. And you got to work at that. Like you need to carpet bomb it with social workers and jobs. Like that's how you fix that. Any one of those kids who got caught up in this shit, when I say kids, I mean like some of them were 16 when they were first charged with a murder in this case.
Damn.
You'd given them a job that had a future, they would never have fucking gotten involved with any of this shit.
Yeah, of course.
One of them was just a kid who was getting picked on for his weight in school, and one thing leads to another. He meets Young Thug and was playing in this. Young Thug and YSL were sponsoring a Pop Warner football team called the Cleveland Avenue 49ers. Kid gets involved, meets Young Thug, and suddenly he's Bad Briss, the rapper Bad Briss. And he can't rap, but he's got a video.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, he's knocking over like an armed robbery here, carjacking over there. And when they tried to arrest him, he shot the cop that was trying to arrest him 6 times, including one in the head.
Oh, shit.
That cop survived. While in jail, he's been fighting with guards and whoever else. Like he needs a lot of therapy, but he needed it 5 years ago.
Right. What's taking so long?
Part of it is I think Fonnie Willis is distracted by other cases.
Okay. Like
the Trump case. Part of it is it's such a giant sprawling mess of a case with 28 defendants that it gummed the courts up 8 ways to Sunday.
Yeah.
And they didn't really unscrew themselves for a solid year. Part of it is because the prosecutor who had been following this stuff had been building this case for 7 years, quit, or was fired or something. I don't exactly know.
Okay.
All I know is that Don Geary was the subject matter expert on this RICO case. And Don Geary, 4 months in or so, quit to go to Gwinnett. The rumor, and please, I am a journalist who traffics in truth, so please understand that what I am telling you is not something I could validate by a source that I could put on the record. But I feel comfortable enough saying that it's courthouse chatter, that Fonnie Willis didn't want old white guy prosecuting the case in front of what would presumably be a majority black jury with a bunch of black defendants in an emotionally charged, complicated, music stuff, case that she thought he wouldn't be able to get the conviction across. And he's like, yeah, but I know this fucking case better than anybody.
Yeah.
You're going to replace me with somebody else who's going to start from scratch. Okay, well, good luck. Bye.
Yeah.
And quit. So I have heard. I have asked Mr.
I can see that making sense. So
I've asked him to tell me, and he has been unwilling.
Okay.
The person who took over the case has been, this whole process has just been delayed and slow. And I think part of it is because the prosecutor has been playing games with disclosure. When you are putting somebody on trial and you are the prosecutor, you are obligated to give them all of the information that you're going to use in the case before the trial starts. And that's not really happened. They've been dribbling this stuff in small amounts and then 2 terabytes of garbage. It's in there, I promise.
Almost as a game.
Yeah, it's a game. They've been playing games with discovery. And it's just slowed everything down because the lawyers are like, look, we need time to look through this pile of garbage you just handed me for the stuff you're actually going to use in the case. Oh, by the way, we have 400 witnesses. Excuse me? No, we have 400 witnesses. So we have to qualify 400 witnesses, where a quarter of them are cops. So they all have to, You have to go through a whole series of hearings to figure out who's an expert on what and all the rest of this. And then jury selection took 8 months.
That's way too long.
Which is the longest it's ever taken for anything ever. The school cheating scandal, like where they recode teachers in Atlanta, like jury selection was 4 months. Like 8 months. They went through 2,000 jurors to seat 12 people and 4 alternates. A lot of this puts pressure on a defendant to take a deal, no matter what, because all this time you're sitting in Rice Street, like stabby.
Yeah.
There's a stabbing every day at Rice Street. There are 3,000 inmates. There are about 1,500 now because they.
Is that where Young Thug is?
No, he's actually in Cobb County, but the rest of his crew is in Rice Street, and that's part of the reason why. Like of the 28, like 10 of them took deals just off the spot. Get me the fuck out of this.
Yeah.
Like, what do you mean?
Terrifying in here.
No
Right.
jail. Yeah. No jail time. All probation. Give me the deal.
Done. Yeah.
10 years. Oh, fuck it. I'll take the 10 years.
Young Thug is a rapper. YSL is his gang, I guess you could say that, right?
So that is what the prosecution says.
Yeah.
And honestly, like, as I look at the evidence, yeah, that's fair.
Okay.
So there is a street gang on Cleveland Avenue called YSL, and folks who are on trial have been affiliated with that gang at one point or another. Like, that's real.
Mm-hmm.
The question is whether or not they were breaking laws in ways that make them vulnerable to the gang statute and the RICO case. It's not illegal to be in a gang. It is not illegal to be in a street gang.
Okay. What is illegal?
If your street gang is committing crimes as a gang and you're all sticking together in order to defend each other legally, then it's illegal.
I see.
Like, the difference between a street gang and a hockey team is whether or not when you get in a fight on the on the ice, you take the fucking 2-minute timeout when you're done.
Yeah.
Like, and you're not hitting them in the parking lot after the game. Like, that's like, it's really that simple. Like, as long as you're not, like, the question is whether or not they committed crimes and whether or not those crimes fit under, like, the gang statute that says if you commit this crime, you're an illegal gang member who goes to jail for 5 years.
Do you feel like the prosecution is more about making an example out of this?
I think that's part of it. I don't think that's all of it. Look,
Okay.
I sincerely believe that Fonnie Willis sincerely believed that taking YSL and YFN, so there was a gang war going on that started in 2015. 50 people got shot. There were a bunch of people who got murdered. She believed that, like, taking those two gangs off the street was going to reduce the homicide rate, and I think she was right.
Really? So it was that big of a chunk, you think?
So it's complicated, but, like, remember, bunch of different factors.
Yeah.
And this might be a coincidence, but like the week that YSL was arrested, Young Thug was arrested, that's the inflection point in the chart. The running 365-day murder total started to fall that week. Now, they weren't out there fucking killing everybody. Mm-hmm. They really weren't. But all the other gangs saw Young Thug, Versace contract, Saturday Night Live appearance, like Grammy, $1 million house, Young Thug gets arrested.
Mm-hmm.
Oh shit, they're coming. And I think that had a chilling effect on the willingness of, like, legitimate street gang members to commit crimes in Fulton County. Homicide rate's been falling everywhere in Metro Atlanta for years, except DeKalb County.
Okay.
Because DeKalb County is uniquely fucked up. And
in what way?
Hear me when I say this, because I'm a Black Lives Matter marching, police brutality reducing, like, criminal justice reform guy.
Okay.
The city of Atlanta has about 1,500 cops.
Is that a lot? Is that, I don't know.
Yeah, it's for the size of a city, it's about average. Maybe a little on the high side, but not a lot. DeKalb County has about the same population that it polices, because there's little cities inside. Mm-hmm. They have 600. 535 now. It is
significantly less. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so much less that I can't find other counties of a similar size that have fewer than 1,000.
So you're not saying that there shouldn't be less policing per se?
No. What I think is going on is that like some of the gangsters in Atlanta realized that it was just easier to fucking work in DeKalb.
Right.
And so they do.
Less ways to get in trouble.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's not that, and it's not like the cops aren't busting people, but their resources are only so great.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's funny. Like Drug Rich is a gang. It's in my neighborhood. It's like sort of South Hairston Memorial Drive in DeKalb. They're the ones that were knocking over the houses of celebrities in North Fulton.
Oh, really?
Like Mariah Carey's house.
What'd they do?
Oh, it was home invasions. Like, or just a straight up burglary. Like, she's gone, we're going to steal some shit. They got busted by Fulton. Like, they're charged by Fulton.
Oh, wow.
You know,
Okay.
they weren't charged by DeKalb. DeKalb just rolled up a bunch of people. They just pulled in a 30-person RICO that I've got to go dig into. Like, they're getting there, but they just don't have the manpower. It's a rare exception to this general rule of over-policing. Like, they have a very acute, very specific problem.
I see. Yeah, this sample is unique in that way.
And that's the value of like doing the kind of journalism that I've been trying to do. It's not like when you turn on the evening news and you're looking at crime shit, it's going to be this person got shot.
Yeah, it's always just in your face.
And then there's no follow-up,
no
and
context,
no done, and no fucking
zoom
context.
Out. Yeah.
And I am anti that.
What problem as a journalist are you trying to solve by covering Young Thug's case?
So part of it is this. Like there was this narrative about the black community, about rap, about crime in Atlanta, that all sort of converges on that case. Mm-hmm. And what I wanted to tell people was, all right, here is how much of what we talk about when we talk about gang crime that is real and how much is not. So that when your politicians are telling you they want to spend $1 billion to build a new jail, you have enough information that can make that evaluate that appropriately. Mm-hmm. Or if they're telling you that they need to spend, $60 million on a police training facility, whether or not that's bullshit, you know, whether or not there's a better way to spend that money.
Yeah.
As it happens, I think there is.
It's $1 billion, so.
Yeah. The jail's an interesting problem, but I don't think that rebuilding the jail solves it. They have a staffing problem.
Yeah.
It's just like all police departments right now.
Sounds like a shitty job, though.
Well, that's why they have a staffing problem.
Right.
Would you want
I'm not applying, right?
Like the odds of being stabbed as a sheriff's deputy at the jail are higher than they might be otherwise. And they're paying $50,000 and you take your chances. I admire people who are willing to do this work if they're doing it for the right reasons.
Which is what?
Like there's a rehabilitative element to all of this that good cops are looking for. Like there are people who get swallowed up by the criminal justice system that, like, with the right help, the right word can pull out of that and have lives that are productive and meaningful.
Form their lives and in whatever way that is. I guess.
I mean, and on some really basic level, the system needs to work. And or else we do not live in a state of justice.
Yeah.
And if you're about that, you don't care about I didn't become a journalist for the money, and I don't think cops do either.
Clearly.
Like there's I can.
But if they got paid more, do you think that they get smarter people?
Maybe, but
I don't know if that's
think
true
that's
or not.
it. It's just, it's more than money. Money matters, and I think we are at a point where money is going to be
Well, if doctors
important.
got paid shit, then would there be an appeal to go to school for 10 years?
Doctors get paid shit in places like, England, relative to the United States. Like you go to a place with socialized medicine and doctors aren't making $500,000 or $300,000 a year.
So really more of a byproduct of like how we have the health insurance set up over here, really.
This, I think, I think that policing is in a state of crisis right now. I think there are a lot of folks who, within a lot of police officers who are wrestling with, what am I doing here? This used to be much more respected than it was.
When was it more respected? I mean, I guess, when was it doing well?
I mean, I suppose, you can look at I think the decline began in the, mid-2000s. And when I'm talking about respect, I mean, Like, I don't mean like, here's a free ice cream cone.
Right.
I mean this sort of social idea that police officers were helpful and useful to communities in crisis. There's there's been a lot of money spent on policing and not nearly enough on the social issues that reduce crime in the first place. I think that society's coming to that realization, but it's in fits and spurts. And I think policing as a profession, I think police professionals are really going, all right, how do I fit into this? Like, how do I make this work? Particularly in the places where I want to police.
Yeah.
Where, you talk to an Atlanta street cop, they are there because they want to do good for the community that they're in. And I'm going to get a bunch of anarchists are pissed at me for saying that. I'm not.
What are they going to say?
That abolition is the only correct thing. That we should be striving toward a society that requires fewer police and preferably has none. And I don't subscribe to that view. I don't think we can realistically get there.
And why is that, you think? Is that just a human thing?
I think it's a product
Do we need bounds to be put within, or so we're just out of control?
It's just we live in this really unequal society.
Okay.
You know what? This is one of the big things. As I was looking at why violent crime spiked here.
Yeah.
There is a massive correlation between concentrated poverty and inequality and the speed with which their violent crime rate increased. You look at some neighborhoods like in Philly where you've got census tracts that are 70% poor, which is off the fucking chain. That's nuts. Massive explosion of violence there of the kind that distorted the politics of Philadelphia. East St. Louis, massive inequality. New Orleans, massive inequality. Jackson fucking Mississippi, and I am heading to Jackson, Mississippi. Massive inequality, highest murder rate of any city over 100,000 in the United States.
Damn.
The murder rate here got to 36 per 100,000, which is very high.
Okay.
It's over 100
Jeez.
in Jackson.
So you think that's a desperation? Is it
it's all of those factors that I was talking about multiplied by a bunch of people who don't have resources. Look, if you and I, for whatever reason, had beef.
Yeah.
And it was getting out of hand, you have options. And so do I.
Count down to 10.
You can count again. You can leave. You could get into a car that you own and drive away. You could call an Uber because you've got a cell phone that has money attached to it. And you could call a lawyer, call a shrink, call your wife. But when you're really impoverished, your menu of options,
you're stuck,
is smaller. And so suddenly, if it's a coin flip between shooting somebody and running away, as opposed to all of these other things, people who have impulse control problems and are otherwise, they'll make the wrong choice.
It's also kind of a survival instinct a little bit,
especially if you feel threatened. But it's this all of these multiple factors all together. And then, because rich people get into arguments too. We don't shoot each other in general because we have all of these other options and something to lose.
Right. If you have nothing to lose, that's kind of when you could do anything, because what's it matter?
With the Young Thug stuff, that really is a policy thing for me. This is about seeing criminal justice policy improve so that you have fewer cases like that coming through the courts, so that when cases like that do come, there is an understanding in the public of what they should expect, that you get better juries, maybe, that you get better prosecutors, and maybe spend a little less money on this stuff.
Yeah. It's a lot of money.
I'm thinking about if you're going to go through this whole prosecution, and I've been saying this constantly, you go through this whole 2 years of prosecution where you're spending $10,000 a day in order to prosecute or something crazy like that.
Yeah.
But you don't change the material conditions on Cleveland Avenue where YSL was based. 5 years from now, you're going to be back in court with another set of guys.
You're not really solving a problem.
Yeah.
You're stuck in this thing that you started and you're just hell-bent on finishing that.
But it takes all of the reporting to show, like, look, like, you're doing all of this and that's great, but if you don't do this too, you are not solving the problem.
So for you, is the Young Thug YSL case about highlighting those things?
Yes.
And so it didn't just happen for nothing?
Yeah, that's it. I mean, it is about highlighting all of the other aspects of the criminal justice system. And I might add, like, music stuff.
Which is a very weird part of it, right?
Yeah, very. Like,
because all those songs are bangers too. That's the thing.
I'm starting to be a fan. Like, and bearing in mind, like, I'm 51 years old. Yeah. Like, if it was post Wu-Tang Clan, I needed a Sherpa.
Right.
Like, I don't.
You needed to be brought up to speed
like,
on what this.
Like, this is not Outkast. What is this stuff?
Yeah.
Like, so now I kind of.
Yeah.
My co-host is has a much rich, deep understanding of rap and trap and music in general.
Yeah.
Like, Christina Lee was a godsend. And my producer, Tommy Andres, when he connected the two of us, that was the peanut butter and chocolate coming together. We covered each other's bases. Like, and it was some of the best reporting I've ever done.
That's amazing.
There is a connection. Let me tell you this. Like, if people don't want to fucking hear this.
Yeah.
There is a connection, and it is real, between the street gang life in Atlanta and the music scene that cannot be ignored.
What's the connection?
So street gangs are using connections to music studios and labels as a recruiting tool. Like, hey, I should make up a name. Like Fast Freddy or whatever. Like, he's got a street gang, ABC, whatever. And he's famous, and the street gang is affiliated with him, and he's affiliated with them, and he's name checking them in the music. And that gang, when you're trying to appeal to 13 and 14 and 15-year-olds, like, that gang stuff, when it's connected to the music stuff, becomes really attractive. Like, if you're a 13-year-old, you've got mediocre grades, and you don't know whether or not you're going to be able to get out of the hood, and you're like, you don't see outs for yourself. Poverty, concentrated poverty. Some guy who theoretically could connect you to a producer who could get you distributed and then get you a contract for $100,000 in a chain looks like an out.
I mean, it is an out, right?
Yeah. And it is. It is an out for enough people for everybody else to sort of play along. But in the meanwhile, you get 13-year-olds getting murdered at Atlantic Station.
Right.
The Atlantic Station shooting from a couple of years ago.
Yeah,
remember with the kids?
Yeah.
Rap shit.
Was it?
Yeah. There's a rapper named Ola Brunt, and he's getting out of prison in like a couple of months.
Okay.
His brother's Ola Cam, who was a signed rapper, who was one of the ones who got killed. Like, and it's because ops from a different gang ran into each other at the mall, got pushed out into the bridge where a shootout took place. Like, it was internet-driven Instagram beef bullshit.
Yeah.
Like, but it was over rap stuff. Or it's connected. Like, it's not an accident that this guy has a fucking is a label contract. And I am asking the question, at what point do the labels begin to accrue liability for some of this?
Right.
Like, the labels are, in turn, recruiting what they believe are authentic and legitimate gangsters, street guys. Like, they're looking for legit street guys.
Do they really think that they really are? Because not all of them are. Some of them are.
No, some of them are, some of them are not.
And we just assumed, like, when not growing up, that half of them were lying, right?
So the way they'll say it is that they're all lying. And what I'm saying is they're not all lying. There are enough of them that are not lying for it to be fairly obvious that there is a pattern here. Because they know that they can, like, there's a formula. Like, insert street rapper here. Wrap X amount of marketing around this guy in this exact way, and there is a 30% chance that he will pay off. Not 100. Everybody doesn't blow up.
Yeah.
It's like the venture capital, like, formula. Like, you invest in 10 different companies, 5 of them die,
Yeah.
And you get one that blows up and it pays for everything else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like, so they're doing that. Like, you get a contract for 50 grand. Like, there used to be like big $500,000 contracts. Now they're giving out like $100,000 contracts, knowing that some of them are going to blow up, knowing that some of them are going to get killed, which increases the value of their musical portfolio.
That's an interesting point. Yeah.
Which, in a weird way, incentivizes them to recruit folks who are going to crash out one way or another. And that's something I'm still reporting through. That might be my last gasp. I've been gathering string on this for about 2 years now. There are labels, including some that are operating in Atlanta, that have made a business model to some degree of this. And folks in the industry understand who they are. And if I sound like I'm being cagey, it's because I absolutely need my ducks in a row before I start laying down the names.
That makes sense to me.
Like when you look at the number of murdered rappers on some labels, and there are a few everywhere, and then you get a few labels where it's like this long list, then you've got to start wondering. And there's a whole insurance element to this that's interesting that I just can't seem to get at. Key man insurance. Like, it is customary for a music label to take out an insurance policy on an artist. And, you know, if you've got 100 artists and you think that one of them's going to get killed and the payoff's 1,000 to 1 for the cost, it starts to become a profitable idea to sign as many drill rappers that are in the street as you can.
What's the other side of this, though, where if you were impoverished, you grew up in this community, and you came out of this, and you're rapping about the experiences that you know, or maybe all that you know and have seen, and you grow out of that into this music artist, and you're rapping about those things. Isn't that sort of a...
See, that's the other side of this.
Right, because like that's a positive thing.
It's positive. It's also real. Like, I am not a person who wants to take away somebody's art or somebody's career.
So where do you think that, where is the line to you, or like where does it get weird?
I think part of it is about incentives. Like, is the label sitting there going, we really need you to write more about killing people, or we really need you to go and like go ahead and amplify this beef. Yeah, I know. You're like, I'm increasing the chances that somebody's going to shoot you, but you want this record deal, right?
Yeah.
Like, I think that's where you start. That's where one of the big lines is.
Like, I listen to all of Young Thug's music, and I'll get out of the shower and I'm in the mirror like,
yeah,
listen to the song. I'm not going to ever kill anybody because I've heard that.
Nobody is. Nobody's fucking killing anybody because they fucking heard a song.
But there's a direct correlation to the community that's close to them. That's really what you're saying, right?
Yeah, it has nothing to do necessarily with inspiring people to go murder. Like, there's a whole Tipper Gore element of
flipped
this.
that way on some bullshit.
Yes, like the media who talk
I wanted
about
to call
this,
it out because I think that's not true.
Yeah,
but yeah,
no, I don't think that's it at all. It's more like this idea that you're looking for folks who are like for real, like involved in criminal activity that likely results in violence, and saying that's the person that I want to amplify because I think I can profit from that. Yeah. You know, it was this whole thing where, like, as a journalist, I have an antipathy toward like trying to write about terrible things because I don't want to be profiting from the misery of others. Mm-hmm. Well, what the fuck do you do with a music label that is literally chasing after people, like, in order to profit from the fucking misery that they may be creating in a community? Like, that's the worst fucking thing in the world to me. And at some point, and I think we may have the case here in Atlanta soon, at some point, some murder victim's family is going to chase not after the estate of whoever shot the person, but the fucking label. It's going to be Universal or whatever BMG is right now, or Sony or something like that, that's on the hook because they've got the big pocket.
Yeah, that's as high as it goes. So
yeah, the minute this stops being profitable, it ends. The minute drill music stops making a marginal profit,
yeah,
they're not going to fucking sign drill rappers anymore because the liability's too high.
Yeah.
And as the liability rises enough, drill rap disappears.
Yeah.
It's not an accident. People are exacerbating beef strictly for the fucking views.
Well, yeah.
Like, it's Instagram.
I mean, Drake does that.
Yeah. I mean, we're living through it right now.
I know. Yeah.
And I look at that like, what the fuck? Why are you millionaires emulating some like baby drill? Like, what the fuck are you doing?
I mean, because the kids like it, I guess.
Because the kids like it. Like, there's this, and I hate all of this because, like, the people who are consuming this are not, like, most music sales are to people who live in the suburbs because they're the ones with the money.
Yeah.
Like, the local kids are listening to it, but they're not the ones who are financially contributing. Like, it is
Sure. Yeah.
the wider, broader market. Atlanta influences everything. Taking these images, this music, this culture, and spreading it all over the world profitably.
Yeah.
And now I'm looking at like the marketing of Black people behaving badly and trying to kill each other. And I fear that like there is a commercial element of like a marketing push for rappers to beef because people fight.
Yeah.
Like, even though you don't have a fucking stake in it, like, go ahead, guys, go ahead and
Yeah.
beef.
Everyone's a world star, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And then you go, like, there's a shooting, and oh my God. And then there's a lot of attention, and media guys show up, and suddenly everybody's playing the music that they weren't playing before. And here we are. Like, that shit needs to be strangled in a fucking crib. Maybe the Young Thug trial is what gets us there. I don't know. Something needs to fucking change.
What kind of message do you want to leave for other aspiring journalists coming up in this, weird time?
Okay. Well, one, don't be afraid to get kicked out of a place. We didn't even talk about the Trump shit.
I know. I mean,
Like,
that's part 2 then.
Yeah, I guess. Don't be afraid to get kicked out. If you're not irritating somebody with your reporting,
Right.
you're not doing it right. Also, ask good questions. Like, ask weird questions. Ask questions that you think somebody would be interested in hearing the answer from. Don't waste your time with stupid, like, pointless, surface bullshit.
Yeah.
Like, you don't have time. You don't have time. Neither does the person you're talking to. And think about the best possible question, the most enlightening question you can ask before you get in front of somebody, and then ask that question. And if you're afraid to ask that question first.
Oh, wow.
That means it's the good one.
Yeah, right. Before you forget it or talk yourself out of it in your head.
What else? Your personal integrity is everything. You lose that, you lose your job. If you cannot be trusted, you should not be a journalist.
Right. That's the thing you're holding on to, right? That's the thing that allows you to keep opening doors.
Yeah. Also, don't be afraid of the future. Like, if you understand how to discern truth from bullshit, you won't be employed. The only question is whether or not you could be employed and have a roof over your head. But like, there's a role for this, and society will find a way to make it happen. Yeah,
I believe that. Glass half full. I like it.
Yeah. I hope this has been useful to you.
Oh, dude, this has been amazing. Like, I feel like I've learned a bunch. This is awesome. No, I think it's a really cool conversation. I think that it's a good take on the trial too. I haven't been able to sit down and talk about those aspects with anybody like that before.
I'm glad.
I appreciate that.
I'm glad it was useful.
Yeah, no, it was awesome.
Talking to Death is a production of TenderfootTV and iHeart Podcasts, created and hosted by Payne Lindsey. For TenderfootTV, executive producers are Payne Lindsey and Donald Albright. Co-executive producer is Mike Rooney. For iHeart Podcasts, executive producers are Matt Frederick and Alex Williams, with original music by Makeup and Vanity Set. Additional production by Mike Rooney, Dylan Harrington, Sean Nerney, Dayton Cole, and Gustav Wild for Cogito. Production support by Tracy Kaplan, Mara Davis, and Trevor Young. Mixing and mastering by Cooper Skinner and Dayton Cole. Our cover art was created by Rob Sheridan. Check out our website, talkingtodeathpodcast.com.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Talking to Death. This series is released weekly, absolutely free. But if you want ad-free listening and exclusive bonuses, you can subscribe to Tenderfoot Plus on Apple Podcasts or go to tenderfootplus.com.